So Fox News has settled its defamation case with Dominion Voting Systems. So I wanted to talk about some of the aspects of defamation. So since the 1960s, the US Supreme Court has corrected some of the burdens that exist in defamation law that were inherited from the English common law. Basically, defamation and the English standard is basically one of strict liability. The plaintiff or the person suing would generally only have to show three things: that a statement was published, one which was defamatory, two, and that it was referred to the plaintiff. Once that's done, then normally what happens under English law is that the statement is presumed to be false and that it has caused damage to this person, and the defendant would have the burden of then using the available defenses in defamation law: justification, truth, fair comment, honest comment, or some form of privilege, absolute privilege or qualified privilege, to defend the defamatory statement. The US Supreme Court in New York Times versus Sullivan changed it in order to give speech the breathing space it needed. I think the most significant case in US law that corrected this was actually a case in the 80s. I think it's Philadelphia Newspapers versus Heps. But what this basically did was, where the statement complained about is of a public concern, in other words, it's in the public interest that people know about this, the plaintiff is required to show that the statement is false in order to succeed in a defamation action. If the plaintiff is a public figure, then under the standard set by New York Times versus Sullivan, not only do they have to show that the statement was false, but that the defendant knew that it was false, or was reckless, or had reckless disregard for the truth, or something along those lines. And that has given, Americans and American publications greater latitude and freedom to publish things. There's things you simply cannot publish in other countries, and especially not in the UK, because of the strictness of the defamation laws, because they presume that a defamatory statement is false, and they put the burden on the defendant to defend that in some way. American courts will not even enforce English defamation judgments because of that. So in this case, and I say this as having read many defamation cases in various countries, I've never seen a case like this, where not only the plaintiff can show that this information was false, but they have some evidence which clearly shows that the people knew it was false. Fox News ran a number of different defenses. My terminology may be incorrect because I'm used to English defamation law. One of them is called neutral report, or in the UK they're called neutral reportage. Basically, under defamation law, generally you cannot defend a statement as true simply because someone else is said it. That's known as a repetition rule. If you repeat it, you're responsible for it. It's in defamation law, it's basically treated the same. It's the same as if you said it yourself. So the way neutral reportage works is that it's a kind of privilege that if you you can repeat something that's defamatory, so long as you don't adopt that as a statement. And so, in other words, you present both sides of an issue fairly, and you don't adopt either one, you're basically protected from a defamation case. I think from the judge's ruling, from what I read, I think New York law, they don't recognize that defense, and in any case, he said that in Fox News's case, it didn't really apply because it wasn't like a neutral report. I can't remember what other defenses they were trying to run, but to be honest, I was surprised that they actually didn't settle soon enough. And in a way, it's a good thing, because although a lot of people were celebrating, maybe the the demise of Fox News, I think people need to understand that the standard that the Supreme Court has set and that applies for American defamation law is a very good standard. It's a very fair standard, and I think people need to be aware of the Pandora's box they would open. If this had gone to trial, I think it would have been a very bad thing for the media collectively. Not to say that people should publish defamatory things with impunity, but there is a growing call with some politicians, particularly on the right side of the political spectrum. Donald Trump and like Ron DeSantis is introducing legislation to try and whittle down the sort of protections afforded to defamation defendants. So I think some media lawyers were kind of nervous about these cases because they were worried it might lead to some sort of a change in the defamation law to the detriment of people who publish things that are in the public interest. But anyway, people who do publish false and defamatory things should be held accountable. There's no question of that. But yeah, it's important that these protections do remain, because they do give people vital protections that pretty much no one else in the world has. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. So bye-bye.